Well, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Julie with Julie Rupert Events joining us. And if you saw part one, you already know who she is and what she's about. If you haven't, go back and watch it. But we today are going to talk about wedding planning. So if you are a couple getting engaged soon or you just got engaged, definitely want to listen to this one because she's going to share so many things. I'm so excited to hear from you. But before we get started, do you want to share how people can connect with you? Because you have so much gold in this conversation, and I want them to go find you.
Yeah, sure. We are at on Instagram, Julie Rupert Events, and our website, julierupertevents.com, and also on Facebook, Julie Rupert Events.
Awesome. Well, you're going to go follow her after this, trust me. We're going to start just diving into questions. And the biggest one I've seen from couples is, what the heck do you do next? Like, what are the first few steps? What do you even do? People usually are bombarded with questions of like, oh, where's the wedding? When are you getting married? Like, what do they do when they get engaged?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one just because for the most part, when you get engaged, this is the first time you've ever planned a wedding. So you just really don't know where to begin. But I think the most important conversation to have initially is going to be with the people around you that are involved in paying for the wedding, whether it's parents, family members. If it's yourselves, then you need to have an honest conversation about budget. I think that's huge. It really sets the tone for every decision you're going to make.
Yes.
And I think once you have a budget number in mind, you need to talk about if it's realistic and if you go over it, what the alternatives are. So budget is the number one thing that you talk about. And then that sets the tone for what venues can we look at. What time of year are we going to get married, because different times of year cost different price points. So, you don't want to blow your whole budget on your venue and then you can't feed anybody that's in attendance. And I think that's the other thing, is that you need to, budget then guest lists, because then you have to realize how big of a venue you need or how small of a venue you want to have. So, budget and guest lists are the two big ones that I think are kind of your first steps.
Yeah. No, that is genius. And really the other big question is that I get from, couples that I've interviewed in the past of like getting started, they do, like you said, have like the sticker shock of like how expensive everything is. And I know like when we planned our wedding back in the day,
oh gosh,
weddings looked different back then. I was in the Pinterest burlap days, and yes, I had that at my wedding. But like
Mason jar days.
Yes, that was me with
Yeah.
baby's breath, all that in a barn.
8 years ago.
Yeah.
Let's not even get into 19 years ago when I got married.
Wasn't going to bring that up, but
No, but for real, like weddings look different these days, and I feel like social media kind of makes it sound like, oh, you can have this beautiful wedding. Oh, but it's going to cost like X amount, and people are just like, like, I don't want to go into debt for this.
Yeah, I mean, inflation is real. It's happening everywhere. Just because you don't want to spend that much money, it's going to cost you. I mean, weddings are much more expensive now than they were in 2020. I mean, even.
Yeah.
Just in the past 3 years, things have changed dramatically across the board. Flowers are expensive. Food is expensive. Labor is expensive. I think labor is the biggest sticker shock for people. Is that, you have to pay people to do the work you want them to do. It's not just paying for the product.
Right.
It's paying for the labor. And, I talk people off the ledge all the time. Like, okay, if this is X, it costs X that, amount of dollars to do this, like, where do you need it to be? So then let's start making cuts. But I also say, let's ask for everything you want.
Yeah.
So we can see how much everything costs. And then we can start kind of making cuts. And, that's where hiring a planner helps, that, someone who has experience and knows, you really don't need the flowers on that table. We can repurpose ones from the ceremony or something like that. So, that's where we can kind of come in and help achieve, your goals, but, make it more cost effective.
Right. Well, and I have two like other sub questions for you. One, what is something that you encourage your couples to splurge on, or maybe a common thing they want to splurge on?
Yeah, I mean, I like to ask everybody up front, particularly my full planning, couples, what's important to you? What's the three most important things to you? Whether it be music or flowers or food or the bar or
Right.
what are the three most important things, and that's where we're going to focus most of your budget on. Some people have a band in mind that they just have their heart set on. Some people are like, you know what, I'm good with a DJ. I would never, ever tell someone that it's okay not to hire a DJ, though. Like, don't do a playlist. You need
Oh,
someone to
man.
MC the
Yes.
event. That's a big one.
Yes.
But
Oh, you mean you don't like to pick up a microphone?
no,
and
this
MC?
is hard enough for me to sit right here and talk behind this one, and it's just the three of us. So your wedding planner is not the MC of the evening for sure, nor is your photographer.
Yes.
Oh, for sure not.
But yeah, I think it's important just to like think about what means the most to them. Like some people really want to focus on the ceremony and the flowers at the ceremony or whatever it might be. Like that's what you need to like kind of think about and know that you're going to have to maybe cut in other areas in order to accomplish, if photography is most important to you, then yeah, you might splurge a little bit more on your photographer if there's one that you love that might be a little bit more than you thought it was going to be. But then, hey, we don't need to, have as many flowers or,
Right.
So you just need to kind of balance what the most important thing is, and then go from there.
Yeah. Well, and last, like, finance question, if you will. What is something that you think is, it may be an unpopular opinion, a waste of money? Because I have them on my list, and I can share mine first if you want.
I mean, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think like what, because I love all wedding things,
I
but
know.
like, so I think personally, programs.
Ooh, yep, that's on mine.
Yeah, programs, especially ones that serve no purpose. Like if you're having a wedding in the middle of July and your program is a fan, yes, then I think that's a good idea.
Yes.
But some of the paper product type things, like
Yeah.
programs or menus, I mean, you're going to get what you're going to get.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes people don't even read the menus. They'll go
Right.
up to the line and they're like, "What is this?" And you're like,
And then we throw them all away at the end of the night.
Yeah.
So I feel like menus and programs are the two things that.
and depending on what it is, I would also include favors.
Yeah, I mean, I think favors are a thing of the past.
Yeah.
I think the favor you're getting for attending my wedding is the food, the alcohol,
Yeah.
the time
The
that you're getting, the
experience.
experience. So I think favors are, yeah. I mean, I have so many random wedding favors in my office that,
I do too.
because you just collect them at the end of the night. You're like, oh, maybe I'll plant these seeds. Or,
Yeah.
Although I just did a wedding recently that the groom made, and it was a smaller wedding, so it was jars of homemade granola. And
Ooh.
it's good.
If it's a food favor, I say go for it because
Yeah.
they always will leave. But if it's like a little koozie or
Yeah, I mean, I
meant
think,
to be or like little kisses,
yeah, I
like,
think favors are definitely a thing of the past. But,
Yeah.
but I mean, some of them are really nice, and I feel like there's always too many because people forget to
Yes.
bring them. I mean, I'm always like chasing people down, like, don't forget your candle. Like,
That's when we get approaches packing up, and either like the mom will come up to us, be like, "Here,
Yeah.
take 5," and I'm like, "I don't need 5 koozies, but okay."
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I feel like the only other practical one that I've ever seen was luggage tags. They were nice leather luggage tags.
That was what we did with you.
Oh, that was the last one.
Oh yeah, they did. I think I still have that luggage tag on
It's on my luggage.
suitcase.
Yeah, same. So thanks, Abby. too.
Those are some of the few actually
Right.
usable ones that I actually see.
But it didn't have their name on it.
Right. It was
Right.
like
So-
it's like a venture or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe
was
it had
really
like a
cute.
tag on it. But
Mhm.
yeah, so I think, I mean, nobody really wants something with someone else's name and wedding date on it. I think
Yes.
I'm trying to even think like matches or something like that. I mean, but no one even has matches anymore because you can't, I mean, that was back in the day when you used matches. Like,
Right.
So,
It's yeah. Oh man. Well, kind of shifting into another question is away from finances. What is something that you have found working with couples that they have been forgetting about or maybe not even considering when it comes to planning or like the day itself?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that I end up kind of specifically for event management clients, because, they book all their vendors on their own, and then we kind of jump in, 2 months out to be like, what are the plans and, where do we need to fill in, is just kind of checking the contracts with your vendors and making sure, for example, that a photographer, like, oh, we hired him for the 6-hour package. And I'm like, well, that's only 6 hours of photography. Your wedding may be 5 or 6 hours itself. But, if you want them to do detail photos or pre-ceremony photos, or you want a first look, and then you also want them there for your sparkler exit, like, that's really an 8 to 10 hour package that you need. So kind of looking that out, so when you get to the timeline portion of the planning, that you don't have to go back and then add hours, and then that kind of increases your budget and all of that. And same with like your musicians, your band, your DJ. You want to make sure that their playing time is going to be, they're not, stopping a half hour, an hour before the wedding's over.
Oh.
So if you're only contracted them for 4 hours of playing, but your wedding is 6 hours long, then you got 2 hours of no music. So.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Oh
so
my.
So then you're
That'd
going
be
back.
awkward.
Yeah. Then you're going back and adding, and it's like, oh, here. And at that point, you've already signed a contract, so you're kind of stuck. You have to figure it out. So I think being aware of what the contract states, and like hair and makeup. If you're the travel fees and any add-ons. Like, yes, it costs X, but are there any additional fees that we're going to incur by hiring you that we're not, like, that's in the fine print?
Right.
Because, people don't necessarily always read contracts. It's, that's a thing. They sign them and they're like, okay, we're good. And then, it comes to a month before the wedding, and, hair and makeup's like, oh, it's also this much for travel fees, and you need to get us a hotel, and you need to, so then it's just more money. As you get closer to the wedding, like, the spending just gets out of control. You're like, okay.
Well, and like you said, like, once you're in the contract, like, you're kind of stuck, or you lose money, and you're kind of forced to pay whatever they're expecting. So
I think timeline, like, be aware of like what you're signing up for, so then how that's going to fit into your day. And then on the day of, like, I feel like the biggest one that people don't think about is feeding the wedding party. Like, during the day, like, a wedding party might get there. Gets there early. Like, sometimes hair and makeup starts at, 8, 9 a.m. And then the wedding's not till 4. And you got to feed these people. Like, or you're going to get hangry, or, if you're having mimosas, then there's just going to be like drunk people, and it's, it just gets out of hand. So feeding your wedding party and making sure everyone's taken care of is a big one too, that I feel like is kind of a last minute, like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And if you have a remote location, there's not just a Panera down the street that you can like order and have it delivered, or, Uber Eats or something like that. So just kind of thinking about those things.
No, that is gold. I didn't even think of that. And I'm like in the bridal suite, like doing all the pictures and stuff, and I see the food, but I don't like realize there is planning even in that to have food for your people. When going into like the flow of a wedding day, what is something that you have found you've had to really work through with couples as far as like maybe choosing which timeline they want? I know one of my struggles is I'm not trying to convince them all to do a first look. I know they're probably like, that's a lie, Emily. We did a first look and we loved it. But honestly, in my mind, it's more a logistics question of like, how do you want your day to be? Like, do you want to spend time with your spouse? Do you not want to see them until reception time? Because you don't have a lot of intentional time with them until reception. But even then, you have people still coming up to you. And for me, like the flow of the day, it really is hard sometimes to get them to realize what they're choosing in choosing certain timelines. So maybe go into like how you work with them on how to pick the flow of their day.
Yeah, I think it comes back to what's important to the couple. Some couples, it's very important to attend cocktail hour. If you want to attend cocktail hour, then you're going to have to do a first look.
Right.
If you want to have...
Or have like a 3-hour cocktail hour.
If you want to have all the pictures that you want. Because that's, if you don't have a first look, which I totally get too. I mean, a first look wasn't even a thing,
Right.
So when back in the day, but if you don't have a first look, then and you want that moment to be when you walk down the aisle, then you have to realize that cocktail hour between ceremony and the start of the reception is when you're going to be doing all your photos, and it's going to be rushed.
Yes.
Do you need pictures of you and your entire extended family? I mean, how many people actually use those photos? I don't know. But I mean, those are things that you need to consider in the timing. It can't all just happen because you want it to happen. Like you have to be
Yes.
realistic in how you're and in your thinking. But so I like to encourage, find out if you want to be at cocktail hour, yes, a first look makes the most sense. If you want to
Right.
knock out all your photos pre-ceremony with your wedding party, then yes, you need to do,
Yep.
this is what needs to happen. Or you need to add some time, and I think people don't also realize how long it takes to feed 150 people.
Yeah. Whether it's like, plated or
Right.
buffet, like, yeah.
However the meal, I mean, that takes some time. It's not going to just happen really quickly. They're like, oh, we just want to rush through dinner. And I'm like, well, you can't just rush through dinner.
Yeah. No.
Because it takes people time to feed them. So just helping couples understand how the day can flow. And you can make suggestions. I mean, I
Right.
always say, hey, here's my opinion. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
I'm not offended at all.
Yeah. I mean, it is
It's your
their wedding.
Yeah, it's your day. This is my opinion. This is how I would recommend you doing it. But we can make it work any way you want, as long as you're being realistic.
Right. Yeah. No, and back to like the family formals, it's not that I don't want to take all the extended family photos, but if, like you're saying, if you want to fill every second of that hour with pictures, like we can do it, but your smiles are going to be stale. Family photos is literally the hardest part of every wedding for me. Just because there's so many people involved.
Everybody wants to
Like,
talk. Everyone's excited to see the couple.
Everyone's
right
to
after
hug
they're
the
married.
couple. Yeah, like it's just, and I love that they're excited. I love that all their families here, especially since COVID. We have had a huge emphasis on like more family photos than we used to, which that's fine. But immediate family only afterwards is like the biggest thing for us. So just like the flow of that and like kind of letting that extended family happen in reception instead, when people are waiting to be done eating.
Or if they want to join cocktail hour, we can do it during cocktail hour.
Yeah, like stuff like that. I just feel is a big, for photography specifically.
Yeah, and for us
know.
as planners, I mean, it's important for us to stay on time, like
Right.
with the timeline. I mean, timeline's huge for us. It's literally like one of the most important parts of what we
Right.
do. And it
Yes.
sounds silly, but we have to be pretty, stern. And we've talked about this where I'm like, okay, how much more time do you need?
You're real with us,
Yeah,
and we appreciate
and I just
that.
want to know. Like, I don't necessarily care. Then we can negotiate. Like, if you say I need 10, and I'm like, I'll give you 7 minutes.
Yeah, and I'll be like, done, sold.
And I start my watch.
You do.
But but they want to get to everything that they've planned. So
Right.
it's our job to make sure that all happens. So I'm kind of like cutting off Aunt Jane, being like, okay, I've got to take the couple with me now. And,
Yeah.
things
Yes.
like that, just because, but you have to, but you have to be tactful about it too. Like you can't
Yeah,
just
you-
be mean about it.
Yes,
As much as sometimes you want to be.
Yes.
You can't.
for real.
You're like, I'm sorry, but they have to come with me. And, people get it
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah, and it's always better also for the vendors, whoever the vendor is, to be the quote bad guy.
Sure.
As
Yeah.
opposed to the couple saying, okay, I need to leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can
and
be
I
the
tell
bad guy.
couples that all the time. Like, hey, if this is something you really want, but your mom is completely against it, or whoever is completely, blame it on me. Like,
Yeah.
you have to be married into this family, or
Yep.
you have to, see these people for the rest of your life. I likely will never see them again. So totally blame me.
Yep.
I'll take the blame for anything for you.
That's what I tell my girls, like, if you don't want anyone in the bridal suite, even if it's like your maid of honor, just tell me, and I'm gonna be like, hey, for photo
Yeah.
purposes, I can't have you in here. Like, make me the bad guy.
Right, absolutely.
I will give them something to do.
Mm-hmm.
I will send them out. Like, if you want everyone out of there, I have kicked out everyone out of a bridal suite
I have
before.
to.
I think we all have.
So I'm like, I'll do what needs to be done. All right. So last question for the day would be, what are some red flags that you have come across in searching for vendors? Specifically, I guess just let's talk about vendor red flags. What are some that you have for?
Yeah, I
for
mean, I think
couples?
for couples that are planning their wedding and, primarily doing it on their own, the red flags that I would recommend are just, I mean, for vendors at this point that don't require a contract, I think that's a huge red flag. I mean, I
Ooh.
get that we live in the South and we're sort of the South, and that
Yeah.
people are like, oh, a handshake is good enough. I think you have to have something in writing just
Mhm.
to, I mean, ensure that they're going to show up, they're going to be there, they're going to do what they say they're going to do.
Right.
So that's a huge one. Like you have to have a contract. And then,
Honestly, I think for contracts too, as a vendor, you need to you need to hire someone that's going to put enough care behind their business to protect themselves as well as you. Because the
Right.
Yeah.
contract is to protect vendors as well as the couple.
Yeah.
Because if say we didn't have a contract, Lord knows this has never happened to us, but if we lost the photos, I mean, the bride could come back and sue us. So we need to put the care into our business to protect
Right.
ourselves.
Right.
Because you don't want to hire someone that doesn't care about their business.
Right.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just think it's crazy for it to be in this day and age and not have a contract. Like it's
Yeah.
just on both sides of the fence. And then the other one is, I mean, I think you just get what you pay for. Like you have to realize that if you're inquiring to, I don't know, call it DJs, and they're all at a certain, around a certain price point, and then you find one, or honestly, transportation is probably the bigger one. This is one I've actually experienced. Is that transportation is, I mean, it's a budget buster. You're going to pay at least $2,000 for a 55 passenger bus, or $1,500 to $2,000 for a 55 passenger bus. If you find one that's 700, like I just feel like it's it's not a realistic thing. So
Yeah.
I think that's you just need to realize, like, if you get a quote and you're like, yes, I found this for a great deal, like there's a reason. Like you get what you pay for, and don't give anybody any deposits, don't give anybody any money until you have a signed contract in place.
Yes.
So I feel like that's the best advice I can give, like couples that are looking this and doing this, kind of navigating the journey on their own.
Well, I didn't know that about transportation. We've come across, usually it's a video where they'll invest, a pretty penny in us. And then they're like, a couple months later, oh, I actually do want to add a videographer. And the worst one we've ever worked with, they were like, oh, we got him on a deal for $300 for the entire day. And I was just like, oh no. Like,
Yeah.
that just caused us to have all these problems running in, to that videography team. It just caused more problems than the 300 was worth,
And I get, like, people starting out in their business. Like, I'm not even going to tell anybody how much I charged for my first wedding, like, that I
Same.
ever did. But, I mean, I think it was, like, a bottle of wine and, like, that they paid me and, like, so something, so we all are starting out and we're all trying
Right.
to get business. So there's always going to be that situation.
Correct.
But you have to realize that's what you're getting into. You're not going to have, Instagram worthy, photography or videography if you're paying $300 for someone who's just starting out their business.
Yeah, and I will say too, like there have been one-off situations where there have been some people starting off and they got really good like a photography or video,
Yeah.
but it's always a massive gamble. And
Right.
do you want to take that kind of gamble on your wedding day?
Yeah, it goes back to like what's important to you. If video is really
Yes.
important, then you need to invest and have something that you feel like is a sure thing.
Yeah. Well, that is amazing. And I definitely agree with them. They are on my red flags list as well. Well, yeah. Well, thank you so much. Today has been just full of information. I hope it's been helpful if you're planning a wedding. And we're going to have you back on because this was a lot of fun. I just enjoyed talking with you.
Absolutely. It was fun.
But thanks for tuning in. I'm going to include all of Julie's info in the show notes. So definitely go check out her work. And hopefully you'll have us as your team on your wedding day. We would love to work more weddings together. We have several actually coming up this fall. So I'm excited. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. And we will catch you next time on the podcast.